The Miami air carried a warm breeze as Zane Knox stepped out of the Blacktown car. Dressed in a dark Henley shirt, clean sneakers, and fitted jeans, he looked like any frequent traveler trying to beat jet lag. The building in front of him was sleek glass and cream stone, an upscale boutique hotel nestled on the edge of the business district where beachside glamour met corporate polish. Zane rolled his carry-on behind him, crossing the polished stone driveway toward the entrance. A valet offered a faint nod but didn't reach for the luggage. Zane didn't pause. He'd learned long ago how people read appearances. Inside the lobby, everything gleamed. High ceilings, gold fixtures, modern art, and soft jazz playing in PC. The background created an atmosphere of curated elegance. A few guests lounged nearby with cocktails in hand. A well-dressed elderly couple glanced at Zane briefly, their eyes flickering over his outfit before returning to their champagne. Behind the marble check-in desk stood a blonde woman in her 30s. Her blazer was tailored, her nails perfectly manicured, and her expression flicked instantly from welcoming to skeptical when she saw him approaching. She straightened slightly, her smile tightening. "Checking in?" she asked, her tone flat, eyebrows raised. "Yes," Zane replied calmly, placing his ID and credit card on the counter. "Reservation under Zane Knox." She looked at the card, then at him, pausing longer than necessary before tapping on her keyboard. Her voice dropped just slightly. "Sir, this is the South Bridge. We're a 4-star private property. Most of our guests book weeks in advance." Zane nodded once. "I did, 3 weeks ago." She squinted at the screen. "Strange. I don't see anything under your name." He reached for his phone. "I have the confirmation if needed." Before he could open the app, she gave a light, sarcastic laugh. "No need, sir. I suppose it happens sometimes. But just so you know, most of our guests prefer the downtown hotels." A few feet away, a young couple froze mid-conversation. Zane heard it. So did they. No apology followed. The woman behind the desk, her name tag read Ayla, clicked a few more. "Keys." "Oh," she said, eyes narrowing. "Here it is. You booked the signature ocean suite." "That's correct." "I'm afraid that room's been reassigned," she said with an exaggerated sigh. "There must have been an internal error, but we do have a standard city view room available. Cozy, clean, close to the staff elevator." Zane kept his expression. Unreadable. "I'll take it," he said after a beat. She handed him a single key card without offering help with his bag. "5th floor, room 514. Enjoy your stay," she said, already turning to the next guest in line. As Zane walked toward the elevators, the elderly man from earlier leaned toward his wife. "Did you hear that? She told him to stay downtown." The woman gave a disapproving shake of her head, but said nothing. The ride up was slow. Elevator music buzzed softly, and the brushed steel walls reflected a tired face. Zane looked at himself. For a moment. Not angry, not surprised. Just patient. Room 514 greeted him with the hollow click of a faulty lock and a stale scent of disinfectant. Inside, the space was cramped. The window barely cracked open. The bathroom mirror had a smudge across the corner. On the bed sat a welcome card addressed to someone else entirely. He pulled back the sheets. One pillow was stained. Zane exhaled. Through his nose, pulled out his phone, and took a photo of the bed, the welcome card, the dusty vent above the closet. Then he opened a secure messaging app and typed a single sentence to Naomi. "Check-in complete. Audit begins now." He hit send. Downstairs, Ayla stood behind the desk, chatting with another clerk. "He looked like he wandered in from a rideshare pool," she said under her breath. Probably using points. They both laughed. Zane, meanwhile, sat in the edge of the unmade bed, calmly reviewing his notes. The script had started, and they didn't even know they were in it yet. A faint knock came at the door 20 minutes after he sent the message. Zane stood, crossing the room without haste, and opened it to find a young man in a burgundy vest and name tag. "Evening, sir," the bellhop said, offering a sheepish smile. "Leo, I was asked to check if everything's okay in here." Zane glanced back at the room, then met Leo's eyes. "You tell me." Leo took one look at the crooked lampshade, the discolored carpet by the window, and the lopsided bedspread, then gave a low whistle. "This isn't the suite you reserved, is it?" "No," Zane replied evenly. "It's not." Leo shifted on his feet, visibly uncomfortable. "I don't want to overstep, but this isn't the first time Ms. Brent's made unusual changes. 2 reservations." Zane's gaze didn't waver. "Unusual?" The bellhop hesitated, lowered his voice. "She tends to decide who fits where. Sometimes she downgrades without permission. Mostly with folks she doesn't think belong up top." "I see," Zane said, not confirming or denying anything. Leo looked around again, clearly bothered. "Sir, I'll report this to housekeeping and try to get the linens changed at least." "That's appreciated," Zane said, pausing. "Tell Ms. Ruiz to come herself, if possible." Leo blinked. "You know her?" Zane gave a small nod. "We've crossed paths." "Understood." Leo turned, muttering, "This place," under his breath as he walked briskly down the hall. Left alone again, Zane walked to the window. The city lights shimmered like a sea of gold beyond the glass. His reflection stared back at him. Calm, focused, not here for revenge, here for clarity. His phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Naomi flashed across the screen. "Guest interaction logs syncing. Audio feed confirmed. Proceed when ready." Zane typed one word in reply. "Continue." Down in the lobby, Ayla leaned casually on the counter, scrolling through her tablet. The second clerk, a younger woman with dark hair in a bun, asked hesitantly, "Was that really necessary earlier?" The guy, "In 514? Ayla didn't look up. "Did you see what he was wearing? Probably got upgraded by mistake. I saved us a review bomb." "You told him to stay downtown." "I said they usually prefer it there. It wasn't personal." The clerk didn't respond, biting her lip. Meanwhile, back on the 5th floor, Dorit's room phone rang once. Zane answered on the first ring. "Mr. Knox?" came a warm, accented voice. "This is Teresa Ruiz. Leo mentioned you asked for me directly." "I did. I'd like to discuss this room assignment if you have a moment." "I'll be up right away." 7 minutes later, she knocked softly and entered, carrying a folded housekeeping tablet. Her uniform was neat, her hair tucked under a navy cap. When she saw Zane clearly, her expression shifted instantly from professional to startled recognition. "Oh," she said, her voice dropping. "Mr. Knox, I wasn't expecting—" Zane gestured to the armchair. "Please." Teresa sat hesitantly, clutching the tablet like a shield. "I saw your photo in the internal newsletter last quarter. The merger briefing. You're—" He nodded once. "Still undercover, technically." She blinked, realization dawning. This was the audit. Zane raised an eyebrow. "It still is." "I had no idea they were placing you here," she said, quickly. "This floor isn't meant for premium guests." "I'm aware," he replied calmly. "You run your team well, Teresa. That's not in question." She nodded slowly, understanding the direction of his words. "Tell me," he asked, "has this pattern with Ms. Brent been documented?" Teresa hesitated. "Not officially. Complaints tend to disappear. One associate filed an internal report last spring after a similar incident. He didn't last the month." Zane looked thoughtful. "And staff morale?" she exhaled. "Strained. Front desk turnover's high. Guests notice more than they speak up about." Zane nodded. "Would you be willing to send me a copy of that buried report?" Quietly, Teresa straightened. "Yes, absolutely." "Good." She stood, composed herself, and added, "Should I arrange a proper room?" "No." "Let it play out," Zane said, then gave a faint smile. "But maybe have engineering. Check the thermostat. Subtle upgrades. I'll see to it myself." She left silently, the door clicking behind her. Zane returned to his desk, opened his laptop, and began compiling notes into a hidden folder labeled Brent Behavior 01. On the wall behind him, the hotel's welcome channel played quietly. On the flat screen, smiling faces and scripted promises of luxury echoing hollowly across the room. He glanced once more at the bed, the stained pillow, the wrong name on the welcome card. Then, calmly, he clicked record. The morning sunlight filtered through the slats of the heavy curtains, casting angled shadows across the carpet. Zane sat at the small desk near the window, sipping black coffee from a flimsy paper cup. The in-room machine had sputtered, leaked, and finally delivered something barely drinkable. He didn't complain. His inbox was already filling. Naomi had sent 3 updates before sunrise: guest survey patterns, flagged employee behavior, and internal policy contradictions from previous audits. He skimmed each file, adding silent mental notes, his fingers moving deliberately across the trackpad. A knock interrupted his rhythm. He opened the door to find Leo again, now in a crisp morning shift uniform. "Morning, sir," Leo said, sounding less hesitant than yesterday. "Ms. Ruiz asked me to check in, said you might need breakfast brought up?" Zane shook his head. "I'd like to eat in the restaurant today. Table for 1. Leo blinked once, nodded quickly. "I'll let them know." Zane dressed casually. A fitted navy sweater, slate-colored pants, leather loafers with no logos in sight. He wore no watch, no visible tech. On his way to the elevator, a housekeeping cart paused as he passed. The attendant gave him a curious glance, then looked away without speaking. The restaurant was tucked behind the lobby bar. Neutral tones, polished silverware, curated playlists, all designed to feel exclusive. A hostess looked up as Zane approached, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, sir," she said with polite detachment. "Can I help you?" "Zane Knox," he replied. "Table for 1. Her eyes flickered over his face, then dropped to the reservation tablet. She tapped the screen twice, then frowned. "I don't have you down," she said slowly. "We're nearly at capacity for breakfast." "I was told a table would be held," he said, not raising his voice. She didn't offer to double-check. "We usually seat premium guests first. Reservations come from the front desk." Zane smiled faintly. "Of course they do." Ayla appeared at that moment, emerging from the bar area holding a tablet. She spotted him and paused mid-step. "Mr. Knox," she said, her tone light but with a note of surprise. "Didn't expect you down here this early." "Thought I'd try the eggs," Zane replied, expression unreadable. Ayla turned to the hostess. "Just give him that side table near the exit. Should be fine." The hostess led Zane past rows of vacant two-tops and window-side booths, seating him at a small table tucked near the restrooms. The air smelled faintly of bleach and overripe fruit. A server approached moments later, dropping a menu without greeting. She didn't ask for his drink preference. Across the room, a couple was being served mimosas and warm pastries with practiced smiles. Zane picked up the menu but didn't open it. He waited. 5 minutes passed. The server hadn't returned. Instead, Ayla reappeared. "Everything all right?" she asked, folding her arms. "I'll need to speak to the general manager," Zane said evenly. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "This morning. Privately." "There's no issue here, sir," she replied. "If there's a delay, it's only because of limited seating." Zane glanced pointedly at the half-empty dining room behind her. "Understood. Still, someone from corporate will be joining me shortly. I'd prefer to speak before then." Ayla hesitated, visibly thrown. "Corporate?" He didn't elaborate. She forced a tight smile. "Let me see if Mr. Lennox is available." Once she left, Zane reached for his phone and typed a short message to Naomi. Behavior consistent. Host, server, manager, all showing bias markers. Video syncing. Her response came in seconds. Feed stable. Table mic hot. Proceed as planned. Moments later, a sharply dressed man in his 40s approached the table. His name tag read, "Lennox, Operations Manager." "Mr. Knox, I'm told you requested me." Zane gestured for him to sit. Lennox did, though reluctantly. "I'd like clarity," Zane said, voice controlled. "Yesterday, I was reassigned to a different room. This morning, I was refused a breakfast table until I insisted." Lennox gave a tight chuckle. "Must have been a misunderstanding. Ms. Brent has authority over check-ins, and breakfast is always tricky during conference weeks." "Your occupancy is under 60% this week," Zane said, holding up his phone. The screen showed a snapshot of the hotel's booking data Naomi had just forwarded. Lennox's jaw tightened. "I'd prefer a conversation without rehearsed deflection," Zane continued. "Before my team arrives." Lennox hesitated, uncertain. How much Zane knew or represented. "What team?" "You'll find out soon enough." Zane stood. "Thank you for your time." As he exited the dining area, the waitress finally returned, tray in hand, eyes darting around as if realizing something had shifted. She watched him walk away, visibly confused. Zane didn't look back. He made his way toward the elevator, passing Ayla, who stared at him with narrowed eyes. She had begun to sense the unease. Something about him no longer fit the assumptions she had built. But the game had only just begun. The hallway outside the executive suites smelled faintly of citrus and polished wood. Zane stepped out of the elevator, his pace unhurried. He passed framed awards hung beside abstract art, each piece reinforcing the hotel's curated image of sophistication. He moved quietly, phone in hand, camera lens discreetly angled. A silent recording captured the layout, the staff interactions, even the scripted greetings echoing from the concierge desk. A janitorial cart stood parked just beside the linen closet. A pair of navy sleeves reached upward, folding towels into perfect thirds. "Ms. Ruiz," Zane said gently. The housekeeper turned, startled. Then her eyes widened. "Mr. Knox." She looked around, made sure no one else was within earshot, and lowered her voice. "What do you need?" "You mentioned a report," he replied. "The one that disappeared." She nodded. "I have a copy. Hard file. HR deleted the digital version from the system. I didn't trust them to handle it right." He admired her foresight. "Can you deliver it discreetly?" "I'll bring it up during my next room rotation. I cover this floor after lunch." "Good. And, Teresa," he added, "you never met me officially. Not yet." She gave a subtle smile. "Understood." Zane continued down the hallway, pausing briefly outside Suite 809. His phone buzzed just as he slid the keycard into the reader. Naomi's message appeared instantly. Boardroom brief confirmed. Executives arriving tomorrow. Legal contact standing by. He typed back, "Let the concierge know I'll need that conference room at noon today. Test the waters early." The suite was tasteful, twice the size of the room he'd been given the night before. This one had been silently reserved under a different name, his real name, and unlocked only after internal clearance. His team had ensured every movement within the property was monitored, logged, and time-stamped without alerting the staff. From this perch, he could see the skyline clearly. The ocean sparkled in the distance, yachts drifting like polished coins across the water. He checked the time. It was almost noon. Downstairs, Ayla stood at the front desk with her arms crossed, watching a clerk fumble through a digital scheduling screen. "There's no note about a boardroom today," the clerk said nervously. "I'm telling you someone added it," Ayla snapped. "That reservation system isn't supposed to be altered without management approval. The entry is locked by corporate access," the clerk replied. "Someone with a high-level key code made it." Ayla's jaw tightened. "Who booked it?" The clerk hesitated. "The name says C. Alcott. That's the alias used for regional executives." Ayla stared at the screen, suddenly aware that something serious was unfolding above her head. Back on the 8th floor, Teresa knocked lightly before entering Zane's suite. She stepped inside, holding a folded manila envelope. "I took this from my locker," she said, closing the door softly behind her. Zane accepted the envelope without opening it immediately. "Tell me what it says." Guest named Jamal R. was denied entry last March. Had a confirmed suite. Ayla insisted he'd used a stolen card. When he protested, she called security. He spent the night in holding, missed his conference. Internal video showed her skipping ID verification. Still, she claimed he became aggressive. That's how HR buried it. Zane held her gaze for a moment. "Why didn't you speak up back then?" "I tried," she said quietly. "But it's always her word against ours, and she knows how to clean it up. That's why people leave, or stay quiet." He nodded slowly. "Not anymore." A few minutes later, Zane entered the second-floor boardroom. It was empty, except for a single staff member arranging chairs. The man glanced up. "This area's closed unless you're part of today's private session." "I am," Zane replied. "Continue." He set his tablet on the table, activating the recording tool linked to the hotel's internal system. The moment the room filled with department heads later that afternoon, everything spoken inside would be captured. From the corridor, Ayla watched him through the glass panel. She didn't enter. She didn't speak. But her eyes were no longer dismissive. There was calculation now. Doubt. Later that afternoon, she paced the back office, calling Lennox. "There's something off about that guy in 514, she said. "He's not just another guest." "You're just realizing that," Lennox replied. He knew the booking numbers this morning. Had live data. Nobody should have that, unless they're inside. "We need to know who he is," she whispered. "Oh, already sent his name to HQ, Lennox muttered. "But something tells me they already know." Ayla didn't answer. She stared at the staff log screen in front of her, her fingers drumming against the desk. The man she thought she had judged at a glance was playing a longer game, one she had never seen coming. The silence behind her grew louder. Something had shifted, and for the first time, Ayla didn't feel in control. She felt watched. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the lobby. Zane stepped out, polished and composed, wearing a charcoal blazer over a crisp, collarless shirt. His pace was measured, his posture deliberate. At the front desk, Ayla was typing something into the system, her movements sharp and irritated. When she looked up and saw him, she immediately straightened. "Mr. Knox," she said, managing a brittle smile. "You're back earlier than expected. Is everything all right?" He paused just long enough to let the silence settle between them. "I'm heading to the boardroom," he said smoothly. "It's reserved." Ayla blinked. "Boardroom? I believe you're aware." Before she could reply, Naomi entered through the revolving door behind him, dressed in a slate-gray suit, a tablet under one arm. Her presence exuded calm precision. She walked directly to Zane's side. "Ayla Brent?" Naomi said politely. "I'm Naomi Vale. I'm here to attend the afternoon compliance review. Is the conference room prepared?" Ayla opened her mouth, but no words came. Naomi didn't wait. She handed her credentials across the counter, an executive badge clipped with a golden seal. Ayla glanced at it, then looked up, color draining from her face. Zane gave her a nod. "We'll be upstairs. Feel free to join once you're done catching up." They walked away without waiting for a response. In the elevator, Naomi glanced at him. Security reports she attempted to alter this morning's guest log. "Expected," Zane replied. "She's reacting now, not planning." The second floor. Boardroom was no longer empty. 3 individuals from corporate legal were seated around the oval table, reviewing tablets and documents. One of them, a tall black woman in a dark suit, stood when Zane entered. "Mr. Knox," she said firmly. "Everything is in place. Presentation. Files loaded. Internal audit logs synced. We've cross-verified statements from Ruiz, Leo, and archived service footage." Zane nodded once. "Thank you, Rena." Naomi moved to the screen at the end of the room, tapping her tablet. The hotel's logo dissolved into a digital interface showing overlapping employee behavior graphs and guest experience metrics. A single, name, Ayla Brent, flashed red multiple times. Downstairs, Ayla hovered near the desk, pretending to review a reservation. Lennox emerged from the hallway behind her, his expression grim. "I got a call," he muttered under his breath. "From Group Oversight. That guy, he's not just auditing us. He owns part of the parent company." Ayla turned sharply. "That's impossible." "He's the one behind the merger," Lennox whispered. "The boardroom they booked? That's not a meeting. It's a review. A real one." Ayla's throat tightened. "They didn't even notify us." "They didn't have to," he said. "He's internal. Above all of us." Ayla looked toward the elevators, her heartbeat now in her ears. Upstairs, Rena was showing footage from the restaurant camera. Ayla instructing the hostess to move Zane to the table near the restroom, rolling her eyes as he passed. Another clip followed. Audio from the morning before, her voice saying, "You people usually stay downtown." Naomi muted the sound. The room went still. Zane remained seated, fingers steepled lightly. "He's on his way," Rena said, "meaning the CEO of the holding company? He'll want your recommendation before addressing the board." Zane nodded. "He'll have it." Just then, the boardroom door opened. Ayla stood at the threshold, attempting to compose herself. "I'd like to speak," she said carefully. "I wasn't aware of the full context. If someone had explained—" Naomi looked up. "Explained what?" Ayla hesitated. "That I was interacting with someone from ownership," Zane finally spoke. "And if I hadn't been?" Her lips parted, slightly, but no answer came. Zane rose slowly, crossing to the monitor. He tapped the screen. Her name appeared beside 6 complaint entries, all unfiled, each dismissed internally. He turned the screen to face her. "This isn't about who I am," he said quietly. "It's about how you treat people when you think they're powerless." Ayla's hands tightened at her sides. "I didn't mean—" "But you did act," Naomi cut in. "Repeatedly. And it's all documented." Rena stepped forward. "You've been recorded across multiple violations, including manipulated guest placement and discriminatory remarks. These aren't isolated incidents. They form a pattern." Ayla's voice dropped. "This could ruin my career." Zane met her eyes. "No, you did that." He walked past her, leaving the boardroom heavy with silence. The echo of his shoes against the marble hallway felt louder than anything Ayla had to say. Downstairs, guests sipped cocktails, unaware that upstairs, everything had changed. And, though one she dismissed just yesterday, was now the man rewriting her future. The sky outside had turned a deeper shade of gold, streaks of amber cutting across the horizon as daylight waned. Through the broad glass walls of the second-floor hallway, Zane stood still, watching the city shift beneath the coming evening. Below, the palm-lined entrance bustled with arrivals, none of them aware of the quiet upheaval happening above there. Heads. Naomi approached without a sound, a folder in her hand. "HR has finalized the paperwork," she said softly. "It's ready for signature." He took the folder, not opening it immediately. Instead he asked, "Where is she now?" "In her office. Lennox has been dismissed as well." "Effective immediately." Zane nodded. "Have Ms. Ruiz brought to the boardroom quietly." Naomi left, without needing further instruction. The final steps came quickly. Teresa entered a few minutes later, slightly uncertain, hands clasped in front of her. She looked from the legal team to Zane, then to the screen showing the performance dashboard of the hotel. "I didn't expect this," she said gently. "You earned it," Zane replied. "You did the right thing when others didn't. That still matters." A formal offer was presented to her, an elevation to guest services director, with full support and training from the corporate office, the kind of role she had never been considered for until now. Her eyes misted as she signed. Naomi placed a silver pin on the table, an emblem of management. Teresa accepted it with trembling fingers. Zane turned away before she could thank him, not out of rudeness, but because the moment had never been about gratitude. It was about correction, restoration. Downstairs, Ayla sat at her desk, frozen. Her office door remained half-closed. The staff around her avoided eye contact. Nobody offered her a smile. Her screen blinked once. An email marked urgent. Final notice landed in her inbox. It was over. 10 minutes later, security escorted her through the lobby. It was not a scene. No shouting, no confrontation. Just quiet compliance and the soft rustle of resignation. She passed guests without acknowledgement. Only Leo, leaning on a service cart near the wall, met her eyes. He didn't smirk. He didn't speak. He simply watched. When she reached the glass doors, she turned once. Behind her, the lobby pulsed with quiet life, untouched by her exit. Ahead, the parking lot glowed under warm lights. Then she stepped into the night, alone. Upstairs, Zane retrieved his things from the suite. He moved without rush, folding his blazer into a leather garment bag. The untouched card from the first night, still addressed to someone else, lay by the lamp. He left it there. His phone buzzed again. A news alert. Word had reached industry channels. The audit, the restructuring, the shift in executive roles. A photo taken discreetly from the lobby had already made the rounds. A man in a gray jacket and quiet shoes standing beside a woman in a navy suit, entering a boardroom that would end a legacy of unchecked prejudice. Naomi entered with final reports. Public relations is prepared. Do you want to speak first, or release the statement? He checked his watch. Let the story speak. Let them listen before we say anything. She nodded once and left to coordinate the post. Zane walked slowly down the hallway one last time, past the award wall, past the guest lounge, past the desk where no one had greeted him properly just 48 hours ago. Now every eye followed him, not because of fear, but because now they knew. He reached the elevator. Leo was waiting nearby, holding a clipboard. "Sir," he said quietly, "thank you for not forgetting the small people." Zane gave him a brief smile. "No one's small. Some people just haven't been seen yet." The elevator opened. Zane stepped inside. As the doors slid shut, he saw Teresa walking through the lobby in a new blazer, staff turning toward her as she passed. The system hadn't collapsed. It had been adjusted, tilted, corrected. The hotel would survive, but it would never operate the same way again. And that was the point. Change had arrived, without shouting, without fury, but with undeniable clarity. Not because Zane demanded respect, but because he refused to let silence define justice.